Fairhaven, how are you? Hope things are going well for you. Looking forward to a great weekend with you. But on this Friday, I want to answer another question that was raised from you, actually, as a church family, in our Let's Talk About It series. And the question is, how do we set biblical boundaries with people we love and hurt us? That is a great, great question, because it would be easy to set boundaries with people who hurt us, who we don't love. But when we love them, it makes it a lot harder. And the greatest story that will help us in answering that question really comes from 13 chapters in the Bible. So I cannot read all of it to you. I'm sure you know it, so I'll tell the story. It's a story of Joseph, who was raised among his brothers, 11 other brothers, and his brothers were upset and mad and jealous because he seemed to be the teacher's pet. He was his dad's, Jacob's, favorite. And so they pretended that he died, and they faked it with his father, and they sold him to Egyptian caravan that was going by. And as they did, he ended up in Egypt. And you probably know the story. He was in Egypt, rose to power, was accused by Potiphar's wife, ended up in jail. In jail, he was able to interpret a dream, which gave great confidence to the Pharaoh. He became the second most powerful, most important person in all of Egypt. And back then, it was a powerful Pharaoh and powerful dynasty, in which case then things got really bad for his own family in the Promised Land, and his family came and was looking for food because there was a great famine, which was actually part of the dream. And you can read the whole story. It's Genesis chapter 37 all the way to Genesis 50. 13 chapters seems like a lot, but if you read it, it's very story-driven, and you can read it within 15 or 20 minutes. So let me grab from this story the answer. How do we set biblical boundaries with people that we love who have hurt us? First of all, let's just remind ourselves that in Joseph's situation, he was betrayed by his family, so people that he loved, people that he thought loved him. He was falsely accused of a very severe offense, which got him thrown into jail. He lost everything, which then really related back to his family. He could blame them and be angry and so forth. His family has some needs, and they came to Egypt not knowing that it was Joseph. So Joseph had a clear opportunity for revenge and could have really lambasted his brothers in the famine. And then last of all, he lost time with his father. I mean, he lost decades of time with his own father, who he loved, and his father loved him. And so there was a lot of perhaps betrayal and isolation, and a sense that he missed out on an awful lot, which again could just bring all kinds of revenge. So in Joseph's story, we learn the answer. Let me give it to you. It's 7 things. They're pretty self-explanatory. So you may want to jot them down if you will, or re-listen to this video and just process each one. Let me tell you, here are the boundaries that we can set with people who we love who have hurt us. Number 1, forgiveness must be the default. You just got to start with forgiveness. And the way to do that is to remember that Jesus forgave us, and he calls us to forgive. And you might be saying, yeah, but you don't know what they did. And I would say, well, maybe I don't. I know what has been done to me. But the truth of the matter is, what we have done to God is greater or equal to that of what has been happening to us. And so forgiveness has got to be the default. And we just need to know that we are forgiven, therefore we forgive. Because we're forgiven, we must have forgiveness as the default. Secondly, we need to trust God for our true identity. Because, you know, when you've been hurt, a lot of times it's in the hurt that we allow our hurt, our pain, the depth of that to redefine us and to create a different identity, that now you're wounded or you have a scarlet letter or whatever it might be. And the second way to set boundaries is to trust God for your identity. Your identity comes in you being a son or a daughter of the King. Number 3, surrender your desire for revenge. I mean, that's Joseph's story. There's so many opportunities, particularly the latter chapters of Genesis, but he could have really got revenge on his family and chose not to. He chose to leave that to God. As a matter of fact, you'll read in Genesis 50, verse 20, that Joseph himself says, what men meant for evil, God meant for good. Which means in there that Joseph left the revenge to God. And so surrender your desire for revenge. You need to surrender that. That's part of the boundaries. Fourth, make sure that we understand that reconcile happens as you build trust. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean that you move immediately into reconciling in relationship. Forgiveness means I'm not going to hold you hostage any longer to my anger, to revenge. I'm not going to hold that against you. And as you desire to move into reconciliation, you take small steps that happen by way of trust, because trust can be built over a period of time. And so you reconcile as you build trust. Number 5, find ways to bless them. One of the best ways to get over hurt is to try to bless the person who has hurt you. Because what that shows them is that you're willing to forgive them and you're willing to allow the blessing of God to be on them. You know, the truth is, at first, you won't feel like it. And when you read Joseph's story, he didn't feel like it. In fact, he wrestled, he wept, he had to go behind the curtain several times. He wrestled with this. But he did it. And so find ways to bless them. Number 6, acknowledge your emotion. As I said, Joseph wept several times in the story. And I love the fact that the Bible tells us that, because it was painful. It brought up early pain. It brought up long-term pain. It brought up residual pain. It brought up the fact that he hasn't really fully recovered. He wasn't really fully over it, even though he'd forgiven and surrendered his revenge. There's emotion. Acknowledge your emotion before God. Read the Psalms. Between Psalms 1 and Psalms 42, lots of emotion as the psalmist cries out to God. And then here's the last one, number 7. Ask God to bring healing. To bring healing in your life, in their life. Ask God to bring that kind of healing. 7 ways, seems simple on paper as I've written it down here for you, but it is really difficult. It's tough, it's challenging, particularly because it's somebody that you love. But you know, when you read the story and you look at it and you jot those 7 things down and you look at it and you stare at it, you pray over it, I think these are really, really good boundaries that will help each one of us as we desire to love those even who have hurt us. God bless you, Fairhaven. I hope you have a great day today and recognize that God will give you the strength to do things that you cannot find within yourself to do that. And that is to set boundaries and to love those who have hurt you. God bless you.